Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording process is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Kaler.
Here.
Colterman.
Present.
Miller.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Hogan.
Here.
Wilkin.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Alright, the first 6 items this evening make up the consent agenda.
Move approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilkin, Kaler, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, item number 1, under public hearings. This is a public hearing, 7 p.m. Consideration of a variance from City Codes 325-3.3 and 325-3.4, mandatory hookup to public sewers for Summit Contracting. Tim, welcome.
Well, good evening, council and mayor. All right, Summit Contracting has requested, since being annexed into the city, that they not have to hook up to city sewer. City code requires a mandatory connection for anybody within the corporate limits where the sewer is within 100 feet of their property. Along with that, we do not allow private septic systems within the city limits. If you note, you have a picture there of their lot. There's only one business on that lot, consisting of roughly 15 acres. Their office building, which would be the first structure put on the lot, is built towards the north side off of Isaac Walton Road. If you're familiar, there's no access off of Walker Road due to the rail system there. So they put that towards the north, and eventually we'll put other buildings to the south of that. With that, their building would be approximately 1,000 feet from our existing sewer line. In your packet, you will see that there's a cost analysis of what it would cost, roughly $100,000 to hook up to city, whereas if they did a private septic system, it would only cost them about $30,000. NDEE has already approved that would be a possibility. Talked with Mike Oneby, city engineer, and water wastewater director Brandon Call, both of which see no downside to this. It's for domestic purpose only. Should they develop into needing something a little bit more stout, then we would ask them to hook up to city sewer at that time. City Code 41041.3C allows for planning commission and city council to review the documents and allow for a variance to those codes rather than having to go to Board of Adjustment. So that's the avenue we're going. Talking with, or Planning Commission recommended unanimously 7-0 to approve. They agreed. We've never seen anything like this as a situation in the city of Seward and the city limits anyway, and are likely not to see it again, with the exception of the property maybe to the west of Summit, if that becomes developed, because they may end up in the same situation. Again, with that, they unanimously approved it, or recommended for approval 7-0.
Is there potential for other lots in this area?
Only one other one would be buildable to the west of Summit. Summit's the only one that's utilizing that 15 acres.
Okay.
The rest is all floodplain. North side of Isaac Walton's floodplain, pretty much to the west over where our RO plant is all floodplain. So the cost for us to install utilities along Isaac Walton Road also is not feasible. We would not have enough users to pay for the service. With that, John is here, should you have any questions. John will Summit, should you have any questions.
This particular location would not be in the floodplain?
Correct.
Okay,
It's right next to Tenneco outside of
Right,
the
right.
floodplain.
okay. Well, that area gets kinda
Yes,
a little wonky.
right. The lot to the west, most of that is in the floodplain, but is still some buildable site there. But not enough to create, again, enough users
Sure.
to pay for putting services along Isaac Walton
No,
Road.
that makes sense. Are there any questions or comments from the council initially?
So there was no, everybody at the planning commission was good, no concerns brought?
Yeah.
Everything's good, okay.
Yep, everything, the only, I should rephrase, the only concern was why are we doing a variance with planning commission and city council as opposed to board of adjustment? And our
Wasn't-
code allows for a new development to be reviewed by planning commission and city council, and this be part of their review.
Okay.
It is a public hearing, so we'll take a moment and do a public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item, please come forward to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, then I will close the comment portion of the public hearing, return it to the council for any additional discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, is there any further discussion from the council? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, thank you. Item number 2 is also a public hearing. This is consideration of a text amendment to the City of Seward Unified Land Development Ordinance, ULDO, Chapter 410, Article 44, Administrative Procedures and Penalties, Section 3, Conditional Use Permits Approval Process. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you. As you're fully aware, we do a lot of conditional use permits or special use permits that are voted on by the council. One thing that we struggle with is how do we know that something has a conditional use permit or a special use permit associated with it? We've gone through, we've looked at past minutes. If we don't know where to start, we don't know where to look, and it's a very tedious process. So one of the recommendations was to go ahead and start filing with the county clerk any conditional use or special use permit. It would be on file with them for the public to review. If somebody's interested in a particular property, then they would know that there's a conditional use or a special use associated either with the land or the property owner, however it is set up. In your packet, you'll see there's a copy of a resolution as an example and a copy of a notice that would go to the county clerk. So it would be public record at that point. We would note on there what the conditional or special use is and whether it runs with the land or with the individual, so that everybody has access to it. Just makes it a little easier to follow up on. I know we've had several questions on whether somebody has a conditional use permit, and we just can't find it, and they're like, we know we've done it, but record keeping in the past was, let's say, less than stellar.
Well, and we had some concerns too, if someone purchased property that did not have this filed and they had no idea, and then that we come back and say, well, now you have to get a conditional use permit, and then for some reason it was denied, I would be concerned about what those next steps look like. And this was actually something that came up in my other role in Lincoln, dealing with zoning, and I think I called you and asked you, because I was seeing this problem all across the state of not knowing whether a property was zoned a certain way, and then whether there's any need for a special use or a conditional use, and I wanna make sure that we weren't gonna fall into the same issues, and so, of course, Tim's 3 steps ahead of me, so we're already working on it, and so I felt dumb and hung up. So, here we are. This is a public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the council initially? Otherwise, we open it up to public comment. Seeing nothing yet? Okay, we'll go to public comment portion of the public hearing. Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item, please come forward at this time. You can't call in though. Must be present to win. Anyone? Seeing no one, then I will close the public comment portion of the public hearing and return to the council for any further discussion. And this is an ordinance, so at the appropriate time, we would ask someone to introduce the ordinance.
I'd introduce the ordinance.
Okay? An ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Seward, chapter 410, zoning and subdivision, article 44, administrative procedures and penalties to better define conditional use permits, to repeal all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, to provide for an effective date, to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form. The ordinance has been read by title and is designated as ordinance number 2023-15, and the title is hereby approved. I need a motion to dispense with statutory rules.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan, 7-0.
Again, this is ordinance number 2023-15. Would anyone like to move that this ordinance be passed and adopted as read?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is, shall ordinance number 2023-15 be finally passed and adopted? Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan, 7-0.
This is our only ordinance for this evening, so I'll need one final motion to make this ordinance part of the permanent record.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Strice, and Morgan, 7-0.
All right, next we have administrative items. Item number 1 is consideration of the following claims. 1A is Sherry Lysing, 2273 308 Road, Lots Cemetery Flowers for $75. And then item 1B is Dr. Jennifer Freund, 444 Hillcrest Drive for a damaged tree.
Josh, I will
Yes.
abstain from A, it's
Okay.
family.
Oh, okay. Is there any questions or comments from the council? Or did, Kelly, would you like to kind of refresh our process on this typically?
So let's start with the first one. The reason that we have the first one on here is because Sherry's here with us, and she wanted to speak to the council
Oh.
pursuant to this, because our recommendation is to pay the claim. Because you can see it's substantially lower than our deductible. But a real quick brief on this, and then I think we'd like to give Sherry some time to speak to it, is that for Memorial Day, we normally put a post out in the paper. We have the timelines for putting up memorials on the website. Those posted on our Facebook, and it's inside of the rules and regulations of the cemetery. Those rules and regs were changed, if you remember, back in January?
In the last year.
Yeah. And one of the updates was to change the amount of time that these memorials stay out after Memorial Day from 14 days to 7. You can also put them out 7 days in advance, so they sit out there for a total of 14 days. The recommendation and reason for that, which was adopted by the cemetery board and also adopted by the council, was that 21 days is a very long time to go with cemetery maintenance around Memorial Day and not being able to get out there and weed whip and do everything right up next to it. It gets a little wily, especially depending on the weather. If we have weather like we're having right now, that stuff's gonna grow like gangbusters in 21 days. And so their recommendation was to make that change. What ultimately happened was the Facebook posts and the rules and regs for sure were updated and correct. We know that the newspaper posting was just sent in and said, hey, do you guys want to rerun this? And the administration, I think in a quick turn, just said, yeah, we'll rerun it again, and didn't take their time to double check that that had been changed. The website, I can't be for sure if that was updated or not. I know we updated
It's
it
been
though.
updated.
I spoke to Sherry on the phone, and I apologize. Once the staff out there recognized that there was a discrepancy and people were coming out asking questions, they immediately stopped, because what they were doing is their standard procedure is to collect what's left and toss. And so they recognized that somebody had said something to them finally, like, hey, do you know that it says in the newspaper that this is supposed to stay out? And they're like, it does? because of the mistake made by administration. And so as soon as they recognized that, they pulled the stuff out that they had tossed, and they put it in a trailer so people could come and try to identify theirs, and then they didn't remove any more until after the 14-day period. But some stuff had been either damaged and lost, or had already been disposed of, and that was ultimately our fault. And so that's the gist of what happened. But Sherry, and I spoke directly to Sherry, and I said, if you want to file a claim, this was on us, so we'll recoup the cost of what you put into that. And then she requested, she did put in her claim in a timely manner, and we were okay paying it, but she did want to come speak to you tonight about her thoughts on it. And so, Sherry.
Yeah, he highlighted most of my little speech here, but I was here more to request to go back to the 3 weeks. I guess I represent many families, and they felt that 2 weeks is just not enough for their loved ones, and also for the veterans that we honor during this time also. And so I'm asking for the cemetery board and the council to reconsider back to the 3 weeks. And it's 3 weeks out of a year. You know, it's not like we're asking a lot. And I really feel that is appropriate. 2 weeks just it doesn't seem fair to our loved ones that we have a memorial to. So that is what I'm here for you to reconsider, going back to the 3 weeks that it was before. And for the grass and stuff, I don't think anybody in family looks at that part of it. They look at it's beautiful when it's decorated. I go past it every day to and from work, and I enjoy it as long as it can last. And we go out there quite often to the cemetery too. So that's what I'm here is for you, just to reconsider it and go back to the way it was before. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments and suggestions. We won't be able to take any action on that tonight, but I typically, when we get a recommendation or a request like that, we would go back to the cemetery board and have them review it and see what their recommendation would be, and then at that time we would bring it back to the council if they were recommending a change. So that's our typical policy.
So,
I would say that we'll just communicate that back to Derek and Mindy with Jeff Boltzke, the chair, and then at their next meeting they can bring that back up. We'd also give them Sherry's contact information, or we would make sure that we contact Sherry and let her know the date and time of that meeting, because it is a public meeting, so she can go and be a part of the conversation.
we just had a retreat for the cemetery board out on, and went and looked at actual new veterans area, and there are some changes that need to be made to the rules related to that specifically. So it is something that they'll be looking at, all those regs again. So.
But I would say the one time of the year we get the most complaints previously, before maybe that was also staff related, is Memorial Day. It is the charge and task of the cemetery crew, the public properties crew that helps them out at that time before Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and usually 4th of July. We ask them also to kind of put extra TLC into it, because we have a lot of visitors that come back that maybe they don't even come on Memorial Day, but they may come for the 4th of July and visit loved ones in their grave sites. And so we do take that seriously, because we know what it's like when it's not being maintained properly, and we've instructed
I
them
would
that.
say the majority of the comments we get is about the grass and why we haven't been more meticulous around graves. So
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
We're not afraid to have the conversation and give you an opportunity to readdress it. So we'll do that. And then we went through and created a process in the administration to make sure that that's updated and looked at and on calendar. And I had conversations with the staff. The other one is just talking about all the nooks and crannies that we put information. So we try actually not to have too many, because then you have to have somebody that knows to look in all those nooks and crannies. And so for instance, the website, it's easier on the website to just have the rules up in that document format. We know we'll update when we update the document and you approve it, versus just typing all that text out within the website. Everything's a give and a take, but it's just making sure as we continue to maintain that as a communication tool that people know what's where. We also said, department heads, unfortunately, for better or for worse, you are the responsible charge for your website content. So if you make a change or something's on yours and it's incorrect, it shouldn't be our trouble to make sure it's double checked. If it's related to the pool, it's related to Parks and Rec, related to cemetery, that comes down to the Public Properties Department. It's related to electric, that's the electric superintendent's issue, and they need to make sure that the area that's key to them and their content needs to be corrected and changed. So we'll do our best at the administration to do that, but there should be a thorough review of each department's own landing sites.
So we can take up 1A first, so we just discussed that. Any other comments or questions about 1A? Yeah, Matt?
Councilperson Tenius and I both were approached by someone that was affected by the same thing. So we passed the information on, and we related to her in our response that a lot of our debate that night was talking about whether or not to leave the gate open on 4th Street. And so when it finally came time to vote on some of the other changes, excuse me, that were made at that meeting and stuff, I think the way we remembered it is we had spent a lot of time talking about the gate. So some of the other stuff was like, well, you know, let's go ahead and pass it, and didn't really review it. So
Yeah, John?
Yeah, I probably caught the most heat of it from than anybody in here, because this is my wife's mother and father's grave, so I had to live with a disappointed wife for many, many days. And so it's something that we need to make sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed next time. I just can't stress that enough, because this is something that is even the ornament they put out there is kind of a keepsake. A lot of the items in there, so it was kind of disappointing. And like I said, I have broad shoulders, and I took a lot there for a few days and stood up for the city too, but I could only do that for so long. So just want to make sure we're dotting our I's,
Sure.
crossing our T's.
So we are recommending to just pay the $75 claim, correct?
Yep.
So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Did you want to abstain from this?
I abstain. Oh, sorry.
You display the votes?
Voting in favor, Wilken, Kaler, Coltman, Miller, Streisand, Morgan, and abstaining is Singleton, 6-0.
Alright. And then item B, this was Dr. Jennifer Freund, 444 Hillcrest Drive, Dam Street, 2,000 to 2,500. Greg, did you wanna?
If you read through the claim, it's essentially, we don't even know, we think that the water main that they're claiming affected the roots of the tree was installed in summer of 2021, 2 years ago. We don't personally believe, we think a lot of the trees, I think Bob Course said we took out 21 of these in the Gulf course due to the hail that went through and some other conditional things. And so we don't think we have any interaction with it, but we would say just recommend to move it on through our normal process. So Kelly, that would be recommend disposition through.
That you forward it to the insurance company for consideration.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to forward it to the insurance company for consideration.
Second.
Is there a person here?
I don't think Jennifer's here. Am I correct?
Okay,
Nope.
I didn't want to not give her an opportunity.
I didn't see her, so.
Okay, we have a motion. A second?
Somebody said second or not.
Yes, Matt?
could I make one comment quick before the
Yeah,
vote?
is there, any
Would-
further
would-
discussion, Matt?
Would it be okay to turn it over to the tree board so they could look into it too? In just a comparison of stuff they've discussed in the past.
As far as like the advancing the claim, we typically would just go
Well,
straight to insurance.
sometimes the tree board's been approached by why they think, the damage had occurred, or if, it was something at fault. I live very close to this area and
Sure.
stuff, and an aloe was just there not that long ago, so, the GE was there when they put in the new hydrant and stuff and everything 2 years ago.
Okay.
But, yeah, aloe was just there, so, there's been a lot of utility work right in that area, so.
Well, I imagine the insurance company has questions, they'll contact the city, right? They'll only contact you and ask, and if you feel like you need to, I'm sure they could get them in touch with the tree board if they felt that was.
I know the tree board's got a little history looking into issues like that, so I
Okay.
just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of forwarding is Wilkin, Kaler, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 7-0.
Alright, thank you. And then item 2, this is an update on the Wellness Center. Greg, if you wanna start?
Yeah, we have numerous guests with us tonight. We have Wellness Center Director, Executive Director Joel Brazy with us. We have Evan and Adam from BVH. We have Jake from Sampson. We have Shane here with Seward Changing the Game. I think I got everybody on our team. And there's some members of the council and stuff that are also involved in the project. Joel's gonna lead you through a presentation of the current design. And so, we're gonna do that, and then we can answer any questions you have, and then we'll be kind of off and running. I think, we'll kind of talk about where we're at specifically in the nitty gritty afterwards, but Joel's gonna lead the discussion, and then, our friends from BVH and Sampson can help us fill in the gaps.
Thank you. It's great to have the opportunity to present this to you and show you where we're at and all the updates, kind of where we came from a little bit as well. Hopefully, when you see this, you'll understand the great work that was put into this. Long before I came on board, the committee put a lot of time and energy into this. Went around visiting different facilities. I've now had a chance to visit some of those facilities. What I've personally come away from is that our plan is excellent. What I saw some flaws in other facilities, we don't have the same flaw here. So a lot of work was done to make sure that we're doing it right. Also, a lot of effort was put in to make sure all the spaces are multi-purpose. They're used for multiple things. They're not just used for an hour or two during the day. And all age groups will be able to enjoy this facility and use it, and that's one of the great things about this. And I'll get, if you want to go ahead, Evan, I'll go ahead and go through this. Site plan up on Waverly Road. On the right is the updated site plan. And you can see the parking lot has 2 entrances, or an entrance and an exit, and then just the whole lay of the land up there on Waverly Road. So this is the general look of the building. Has 4 different parts, and we'll go through each one, and there'll be a layout, and there'll also be some renderings that we'll take a look at. But this just shows the elevation of each of those. So floor plan here, as you can see, just a little over 50,000 square feet. I'll start in the upper left with the gymnasium. There in the gym, there are 2 main courts that are full-size competition courts, and on each of those main courts are 2 side courts that run the opposite way. You can see the lines there. It's also lined for volleyball as well on all of those side courts, and we are getting bids on what it will look like to have pickleball lines as well, and what exactly those lines will look like. Obviously, there's a lot of lines going on, so we want to make sure we do a good job of just not making a big mess of lines out there, but making sure everything is distinguishable. But we will have something for pickleball. Again, this is championship level arena where we can host tournaments, and youth could have games on each of those 4 courts. We could run older up to high school on the main courts, and it would work just fine. It'd be an excellent size for that. 3-lane track on the outside, which will be a rubberized surface. And then we'll also see pictures of it later where I can explain where there will be curtains that drop down that split it into quadrants and all the way around the outside. There will also be a place for some bleachers on the outside in parts where that can be used for if someone's just waiting there at practice, or if there are tournaments that we can bring some more bleachers out. So that is the gymnasium part. The bottom left in the salmon color, the first one, the bigger room, is the fitness area that has cardio equipment as well as free weights and some machines for lifting. And so that will be what's incorporated in there. There'll be some TVs in there. There'll be some windows to the outside. And so that will be a nice big space. We'll have a thick rubberized floor to protect from sound and just damaging the cement underneath. And then to the right of that is the studio, which will have a wood floor, which will be conducive to classes being taught, whether it be an aerobics class, a Zumba class, you name it. We will have a TV in there that potentially it could be a class that's led from just watching instructors on the TV, and there won't be a live instructor there. But we'll also have, we plan on having programming for some live instruction. But that's what that studio will be. Right next to there, on the bottom, will be offices for myself, the assistant director, and then the child care director. And then right above that is the welcome desk as people come in that area right there. To the left is some storage, some laundry for towels and things like that. And so that big entryway opens up, and to the right of that, the first room to the right is a child watch center, which will be for those members and people that are coming with children, that will drop them off to be just to be checked in as they're working out in the facility. So that will be a short term, hour and a half, 2 hours tops, where they can drop them off and they will be supervised. To the right of that, the larger room is the before and after school care room, where students will kind of check in there, and then we plan to have different activities to use the whole facility for that. That's a little bit bigger room because we plan on having more children involved in that. That will also have that will have a space there where if we're hosting a tournament, then we're not having child before and after school care at that time. But if we're hosting a tournament, that room can be used as a concession area and be a nice big space for that, and you make some funds from doing the concessions. So above to the left of that, the multi-purpose room right there is directly connected to the pool area, and that will have a floor in there that will be able to be walked upon if someone is coming in wet from the pool. It will have a safe floor in there for that. That can be used for birthday parties, it can be used for meetings, it can be used for trainings. It could also be used for just meeting and having coffee during the day. So that will truly be multi-purpose room. There will be, you'll see some renderings here in a little bit. There are some large windows that look into that and makes it look open. So we expect to use that space for a lot of different things. To the right in the blue is the natatorium that has 6-lane competition pool. That on the lower left is stairway and entry down into it. On that end of the pool, it is 4 foot in depth. And leading up to the solid black line, farther up in the pool, it is 4.4 feet at that point. So a lot of different exercises can be used in that area. The top of that is 7 foot in depth, where there would be diving boards off of that for any races that go on. So that is 7 foot in depth in that area. The reason for those specific depths is that it allows the city to train lifeguards for both indoor and the outdoor pool in the same area. And so that is why 7 feet was selected for that. But that also, it will allow for swimming lessons, water aerobics, all of those things, as well as potentially hosting, it could host a duel in swimming at some point.
The 7 feet is a certification cutoff, right? That
Correct.
if it was less than 7 feet, then you couldn't count it towards your outdoor swimming certification. So that's what you mean by 7 feet.
That is correct, yes. To the left of that is the current channel, which will have a flow of water, which you can walk against resistance. You could walk with the water resistance for strength building, for just exercise, maybe some physical therapy can be used for that. That little circle towards the top is a seating area that you can just kind of lounge and hang out there. It could also be something in open swim times, kids could have a tube and just float around there. And so we we anticipate that being used quite a bit and being a nice area for that spot. But that is the pool natatorium area. The purple area below that is for mechanical and chemical parts of the pool. All of that will be in that area. Looking in the corridor above the multi-purpose room, we have some general restrooms right here. Above that is women's locker room. The next one above that is family changing areas. And the next one around above that is the men's locker room. Those all lead out a corridor to one door to the pool. And one thing that we're working on right now is safety and security of all of those areas. That's one thing that we're finalizing right now with all of those areas. But that is the general layout, and the next few pictures will show renderings of what those areas look like. Yes?
Joel, I know in our discussions, like in the lower right, in that purple, that
Yes.
general purpose room with youth center activities, moving into that room, one of the comments made at our meetings is not only will the youth center activities be centered in that room, but programming could be used for the whole facility that the youth center used to do. So, you know, I know the youth center people, when they came and wanted to make a contribution to this program and stuff, were very interested on obviously helping, you know, get some space and stuff too. But I thought some of the committee members in their discussion about you know, trying to use other parts of the facility for the youth center and stuff was really good comment.
Absolutely. We're gonna use this to have a great youth center to service the kids that we have that need that organized time there, and we plan on being able to then send them out to have different activities in the building. It won't just be hanging out in that room, a free-for-all, just do whatever you want on electronics. We're gonna have some, you know, maybe it's a pool day, maybe here we're going over to play this game in the gym, but it's gonna be a place where our kids can go after school for a safe place to have some exercise. Go ahead. Some renderings of this is the front, this is facing west, and so the gray part is just, it's in front of the building, and we'll have, and you can see some light through that. The white is a covering, and you can just see that coming from, that's from the west. You can see some different, there will be some lighting underneath there, and that will be well lit. But that is, again, facing the west, that'll be the front entrance. This is the entryway as you're coming in. And so as you look up to the left, you can see into the gym. Straight forward, you see into the multi-purpose room. And the desk will be the check-in desk for anybody. We'll also have some screens around there to show the schedule of what's going on that day, of when classes are. Also some signage directing people where to go, where certain facilities are. Okay. This is a multi-purpose room. Again, this is going to have a flooring that is safe. If someone's coming in from the pool and is wet, they're going to be safe in there, and it can be used for a lot of different things. You see on the right, windows out to kind of the commons entryway right there, and then up top into the pool. So a larger before and after school care room that will be used. Youth will check in, youth center activities. Again, that it can be used for a lot of different things. We'll have organized activities for them. It will also have a space where, again, where when we have tournaments, have large groups coming in where we can do a concession stand and make use of that space for that. Child care space, again, a little bit smaller. That's the first one that people are gonna come to. Parents are not gonna have to walk all the way through the building to drop their children off. It's gonna be right there, the first thing they get to. The studio with the wood floor will be, again, where our classes are taught. And so this is just an example. One type of class could be a spinning class. Next two are of the fitness area. in just different directions. See the rubber floor in there, and then this is from one direction, the next one is from a different one. We're still working on design of which direction to put the treadmills, which is the best, but this is will be the general look of it, and we'll have, from facilities that we've seen and experts that we've talked to, we have everything we need in here, and the space will work very well for our needs. Natatorium showing the pool and the current channel on the right. Just give you a visual of what all of that looks like. Very impressive when you first see that, and that will be a great thing to have. Next is the gym. You see the multiple courts. And then also what's not shown on this rendering, that's a little hard to, and what they is we will have curtains that will be able to be dropped down that will split the whole entire court in quadrants. So all the side courts could be partitioned off. And then there will also be a curtain that goes around the entire outside to protect people that are walking or jogging on the track from getting hit by a ball, or maybe one rolling out there and stumbling over it. That will be down. When we envision that when we have big tournaments, that the track will be off limits for those times. We won't be hosting that many tournaments, so it'll be rare throughout the year, but we would think that we would shut off the track at that time, and then we can also bring some bleachers in a safe way out on that track so that people, there's more seating there as well. And then we've also, as we're going forward, thought about the land purchase of, again, way before me, all this work was put in about envisioning what this place could look at out there, and this would be a next phase, and obviously we don't know how fast that could happen, but this is what we would look at if tomorrow someone gave us $10 million, what would we do next? This is what we do next. An additional gym on the top, which would be the same size as one of those main gyms, and then indoor field house there towards the east. That would be a turfed field that, again, indoor, where we could do a lot of different activities. Training could be done in there, not just for a sports team. You could do some regular training. It would also get used for a lot of different activities in that. And then on the bottom, possible outdoor swimming pool right there. And so that is the renderings. Appreciate the opportunity to come and show you. Do you have any questions for anybody else on our team that we can help you with?
I got one, and I maybe should have brought this up sooner when everybody looked at this before, but did anybody think about lighting and what style lighting we're gonna do outside?
Style lighting outside.
You mean with glare coming in?
Any type, like, we have special, different street lights downtown and that. Did anybody think about lighting, what we're gonna go with out there? Style?
We'll probably just use our standard street lights unless Max, the parcel's being donated by the Wake family. And so if the Wakes have a specific style in their development up there that they would like to see, they want to make a recommendation, we'll obviously entertain that. But for now, at least along the street corridor, we'll use the standard street lights. We may have something different that matches more of what you see in the middle school for the parking lot, so that goes. But the lighting on the building itself will be very specific, because we want to highlight the building and light it up in a certain way so it kind of pops, and it doesn't just look like this block building that's sitting there. It has some dynamic to it.
Yeah, it's just one thing that we're thinking about everything inside, but are we starting to think? And then the last one, since there is some potential, we're gonna have a lot of grounds to worry about. Anybody think about a well, a potential for future, for watering and?
We could potentially look at it, but we would look at it for any field use or things like that. They're integrating some systems and discussing that for watering of, like you saw at the front there, they have the planters and things like that, an integrated drip system that may utilize some of the catch water that we can get and things like that. Evan, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, no,
that covers it. We haven't looked into a well as far as a water source, but we are hooking on to the city's water
Just,
and sewer.
I was just thinking, you know, we're starting to develop everything on the outside and start looking at, you know, the placement, you know, it's an opportunity. Be no different than what we do at the golf course and everything else.
I just want to say on behalf of city administration, how proud I am of the work Joel's been doing since he was hired on again. Joel's been with us full-time since, I think, June 26th, but he's been working on this for a couple months now, because as soon as we hired him, he started coming to the meetings that he could make and sitting in on visits and stuff like that. Him and Adam Bodie, our assistant park and rec director, who will basically tag along with Joel as they move over there. He'll move over with Joel as the two current full-time staffers that will staff this facility. They've visited a lot of stuff recently, and Adam's had an integral part of working on the pool in this facility with all his knowledge down at our public pool. He's our certified operator in the city. So they've done a great job. I want to thank Shane especially, but the whole Seward Changing the Game board and team for all the work that they've put in to get this, and Shane specifically. I mean, he is the driving force behind moving this project forward for a decade plus, along with others in our community and this council. But he's been there since the discussions, I think, of the old middle school site, and then the Mike's Market site, and all the other sites we looked at together, and all the visits we've gone on together. But he still continues to be one of the predominant drivers of every conversation, and all the work that they've done for their fundraising, and that they continue to do. And there is more fundraising to do. There's some work that we want to get to the finish line on this thing, but we're very, very close. And then I want to just thank Am and Evan at BBH, the work that we've done. It wasn't always the easiest. We were a hard group to get started with, but through their work and their listening to our ideas and our designs and things, and their response to that has been impeccable, especially of late, because we've had to do a lot of things quickly here at the end to appease certain interests, to just make sure that we got everything we needed correctly. And they were wonderful in their response to that, and we truly appreciate that. And coming and doing all these presentations, and look at all the crazy photos we send and weird buildings we talk about. We're like, hey, what about this building up in Omaha? And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And then lastly, Jake's here with Samson, Samson will be constructing the facility, and they're our CR on this. And just the work between the whole team and Brett over at their group. One of the big things we had to navigate through all together was the fact that when this originally, the concept that you were shown about a year ago, was put to paper with all the cost increase and all the inflation, this came in way over budget. And Matt was sitting on our committee and in the room when the number got dropped, and Shane picked me up off the floor, and I'm being facetious, but you know, we knew that we had work to do, and that's the reason that we hired and did the CMR process, was to bring some of those costs back down and value engineer it, and work with our designers to know how to put that all together into a reasonable bucket that we could deliver, and try to deliver the programming we said that we were going to bring online when we originally brought this forth to you and brought it to the voters and all the donors. Cohesing all that together, and Samson's been a huge part of that every step of the way over the last 6-7 months, to kind of help us work together with the design team to design it down with their knowledge to get it into a fundable source. And so bringing that down, though, the big one was bringing it from 2 floors to 1. That was a dramatic difference. We went from how many square feet, Evan, to start? 60? 64, and we're right at just above 50,000 now, correct? And so that's a lot of square footage to take out of a building, but still deliver on the programming that we said we were gonna, and not cut corners where, you know, there's a curve around a basketball corner, and you know, there's a heater over your head like the B Dome or something. You know, not criticizing the dome. That place is awesome, but that's really where we had to work our way through, and it sometimes is a painful process, but we all committed to working through it together to deliver what you saw here. So I just want to commend all of them. I thank Councilmember Streisand, Councilmember Miller and Coulterman for sitting in on some of the process to select these firms to work with us. And so it's been quite the ordeal, but we see the finish line coming, and then we're gonna start getting ready once we shore up this last little bit of fundraising to get shovels in the ground, hopefully. Shane, is there anything you wanna add or say in regards to it?
Yeah, so, we had a really good meeting last week, with our donors, letting them know the progress of where things were at. You know, we had a great turnout, and so the people are really excited about this. We're hearing a lot of positives, and we hope you're hearing a lot of positives out there as well. We hope that after seeing this tonight, it's something we can all be proud of, because that means a lot to us, right? That we're bringing a product that everybody's proud of, and we wanna all be part of. And so, I wanna echo Greg's, comments there. A lot of people had a lot of hands in this, and it's taken a tremendous amount of work, but I think it makes our community better because of it. And so, I just thank you for letting me be part of it, and happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
The only thing that I keep getting stopped on the street and asking, when are you gonna break ground? Is there a way we can just communicate out to the public what
So-
that tentative timeline looks like,
Yeah, so we are anticipating this fall that we're getting started, but we do need to secure about 3.5 million more to make that.
So I'll just tell them, make a donation, then we can talk
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. And so we are working on that diligently right now. We've had 3 meetings in the last 5 days where we're talking about strategy and who we need to talk to and how we need to talk to them. And so, our plan is for fall of '23. The project has to be done due to the grant by June of '25. And so that's the schedule we've been working on with Sampson and EVH. And so it is absolutely critical that the team gets to work and we get the final, stages complete so we can get this baby rolling. So, and, you know, the other thing I just mentioned, you know, we were at 64,000 square feet, we're down to 50. No one anticipated inflation and, you know, the cost of construction and all those things happening the way that they did. But we're not too far off from where we wanted to be. I know it sounds like a huge number, but we are 84% of the way there. And that's pretty incredible that we've secured those dollars already. 84% of the dollars we need have been secured. So, we'll wrap that up here in the next, 60 to 75 days, and we'll see some good things happening here this fall.
We're still working through, like we said we would do. We needed a final number, or as close to a final number that a professional could provide us to give to the foundations and the larger grant groups that had said, hey, either look like you're fully funded at 18, oh, we're not because of inflation, we do need help, or we need a final number, like construction number, which we didn't have at the time that we had originally applied 6 months or a year ago. And so we have that, and so our grant writers got numerous irons in the fire